So, a very warm greeting to everyone present here today. So, for today's webinar, uh, we we have the winners of Institute of Law, Nirma University's National Moot Court Competition winners with us. Uh, I am Palak Agarwal, and I am working at Memo Pandits as content manager. And uh, So the format of the webinar will be such that we will first have a discussion with the speakers, and then we will open the floor for questions at the end of the webinar. Kindly note down questions if you have any, and it will be taken up at the last. With this, I would just request all the speakers to introduce themselves to the audience. Rishabh Agarwal, if you could start.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much for the opportunity and welcome all. I hope you all are doing safe and your families are also safe. My name is Rishabh Agarwal and I'm a fourth year BA honors student from Gujarat National Law University. And mooting has been really one of my great interest areas for the past 4 years in the Law University. And counting for Nirma, I have done 5 moots, 4 national moots, sorry, 3 national moots and 2 international moots. Thank you.
Rishabh, can you follow?
Certainly. My name is Rishabh Joshi. I'm a fourth year student from Gujarat National Law University. I'm currently pursuing BBA LLB at the Institute. I have also been a fan of mooting since the very beginning of my law school. And previous to this moot, I had also taken part in the Ox Prize moot, representing our college as a researcher. And yes, that's about it.
That's great. Ishan, if you could follow.
Yeah, thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay, so my name is Ishan Pandey and I'm a first year student at Gujarat National University. I'm currently pursuing BLLB and this was my first national moot court competition and it was a wonderful experience. I guess that's pretty much it.
That's great, Ishan. So, to start with, the 10th Institute of Law, Nirma University National Moot Court Competition is a very prestigious competition in India. And this year's moot problem was a blend of subjects with emphasis made on intellectual property rights and competition law. What was the reason behind choosing this moot? And was it your interest in IP laws, or is there some other reason?
Uh, well, thank you for the question. I believe that this moot in itself was a unique opportunity to study these laws of trademark, copyright, as well as competition law in detail. So that was a major reason, I believe, for three of us to choose this moot. Moreover, for me as well as Rishabh Joshi, we had been studying intellectual property rights as well as competition law in this semester, that is our semester 8 at the university. So that provided us with a preliminary understanding to understand and to assess the nuances which would be involved in this particular moot problem. Moreover, I believe that I personally had participated in an intramoot, which was internally organized in GNLU for selecting the people who would participate in the national and international moots. And in my third year, the intramoot was on the law of passing off. So that was my first experience with the law of trademarks as such, and I really found it to be very interesting and pretty dynamic. And I believe that the exercise of choosing the moot was in itself very interesting because we read problems across different moots. We read moot problems and different rules and what their requirements are, and we try to assess that whether it will be feasible for us concerning our academic calendar, of course. And accordingly, Nirma moot was the particular moot, I believe, which came on the first of our preference. And the way it works in GNLU is that we submit our preferences and on the basis of the rank that we get in our intramoot, and accordingly the moot court committee forms the team. So that is how we submitted our preferences and we three came together and our team was formed. If others of my teammates would like to add anything.
No, I'll completely agree with you here. For me, it was quite after the results came out of the intras, and I too had a good knack for IPR and competition law. So I was like, yeah, let's let's just give it a try. And it was my first preference. Again, judging by the time and the date allocation and the semester time and the semester going on. So it was the first preference, and then the moot court committee decided along, and then the team was formed. So I believe Rishabh Agarwal pretty much summed it up.
That's great. Mr. Rishabh Joshi, it would be great if you could, throw some light on the question that what are the things that motors should keep in mind while choosing a moot?
Okay, so I'll just point out what I was looking forward to in this mode and why I chose this mode in particular. And the reason was very simple and in very straightforward manner. It should be area of interest. I have been extremely interested in competition law as well as intellectual property, and I have been writing in the said field. I've been interning in the said field with different firms, different teams of different firms. So my interest has gradually built into it. In fact, the first note of my law school was pertaining to competition law and intellectual property law, the techno-legal mode of UPS there. And from there on, I had decided that this is something that I find really interesting and maybe a potential career. I can think of a career in this dimension. And when I got this opportunity, we also, as Rishabh Agarwal earlier pointed out, we realized that we had already studied and understood these two subjects. So these are the two reasons for me. I think number one is area of interest. That should be given the most priority. If you're looking to win a moot, please ensure that you are interested in the area of moot that you're choosing. If it is only for the experience, well, then you can choose any moot. But if your aim is victory, then please go ahead with the area where you are interested in. And second, the understanding and compatibility of yours with those subjects involved.
Indeed, I completely agree with you. Mr. Ishan, it would be great if you could answer the next question, which is that what is the difficulty level of the mood problem that you drafted and researched upon, and how much time did you guys spend decoding the problem to formulate the issues?
Yeah, thank you. Uh, so I believe on the day we were allocated the team, we had a call late in the night. So it was basically for discussing how do we need to proceed and how do we have to tackle the whole problem. So it was organized. It was very well organized. We divided the work. We mandated out what dates we need to be ready with. How do we have to prepare? How do we have to research? And by what time do we have to go with the first draft, the second draft, the third draft? And I recall Rishabh Agarwal saying that you have to read the mood problem every day so as to point out any loopholes if you can find out in the problem and mark it down and research upon it. So it was a good experience. As for the difficulty of the mood, I'll say it was good as a from a first year's perspective. If I were to add, it was quite good. It was somewhere between moderate to difficult if I have the privilege to say that. Rest, I believe Rishabh Agarwal and Rishabh Joshi can sum it up very nicely.
Would any of you like to add?
Um, I believe that Ishan has summed it up better. It's just that this problem was in itself, drafted on a very niche area where we find combination of trademark, copyright, and competition law, where we are having this luxury brand and its selective distribution, and then its second-hand sale. And along with that, we are having custom law, counterfeiting. We also tried to find constitutional law, and there were overtures of criminal law as well. So it was a varied problem, I will say, to answer the question on difficulty. And for decoding, as you asked, that how much time we spent on formulating the issues, I believe that, and all of us here who are listening, who have mooted before, they would have realized that decoding is a continuous process. We can't put a timestamp that this is the day I will stop decoding the problem, because till the last day we were drafting, we were still thinking, and mooting is an exercise which allows you to think. So this was really fun that till the last day, as every day, as Ishan said, we made it a point to read the problem. And every day we read the problem, we understood something new, because this problem is huge. It is running into 16 pages, 29 paragraphs. So there are so many facts. You can research as much as you want. So that was really an interesting exercise and an exercise full of fun.
That's a great observation, Rishabh. So my next question is to Mr. Rishabh Joshi. So since you just mentioned that you have had prior experience in intellectual property and you have been interning a lot in this area, do you think that it was necessary to have an in-depth knowledge of intellectual property and competition law to crack the proposition?
Uh, I think it certainly helps a lot if you have a prior background. So what happened with us was that we were allocated this mode quite late. I mean, we had around 10 to 12 days to figure out the whole thing, to figure out the problem, draft the two modes and submit it. So keeping that perspective in mind, I think a prior knowledge of it that Rishabh Agrawal and I both had due to our studies this semester, and I had with regards to my internship experiences, I think that helped a lot. But no, I don't think it is necessary to have such information. It certainly helps because if you're going and moving into a niche area, which is like competition law, tax law, intellectual property, one of those. So if you're going for certain niche area, it's not constitution and corporate that you can just, you have prior knowledge from beforehand. Like these are the subjects that you study while you're preparing for CLAT as well, certain amount of it. Like IPC, you know a little bit. They teach you in CLAT coachings. With respect to these niche subjects, if you have a prior knowledge, I think it certainly helps. And that is the reason I mentioned it in my previous answer also, that area of interest plays a huge role, and that helped us a lot.
All right. Mr. Rishabh Agarwal, if you could tell our audience as to how did you guys divide the work amongst yourselves as you participated as a team of three?
Yes, thank you for the question. Actually, as Ishan began by saying that the day we were allotted the moot rather, we had a conference amongst ourselves. And from that day on, we tried to strategize on what will be the areas which each person would be comfortable and would be willing to research on. And that's how we divided the areas amongst ourselves for the moot problem. We started researching on the same. And as per the event schedule, we tried to divide the work amongst us because we are working from three different corners of the country. We are not like having the luxury which we could have had we worked in the library sitting together. We were like in different places. So how to have coordination? So the coordination was in terms of having prior set deadlines that this is the date for first draft, this is the date for second draft, this is how one would compile citations, formatting, compendium, and then for oral rounds, this is how we'll minutize it, etc., etc. So that I think helped us. And I believe that every team which decides to boot should have a prior strategy at hand. And that's why many people go for moot coaches. We did not have a moot coach with us, but amongst us, I believe that we tried to get on constant calls, constant conferences, and I think that is what helped us.
That's great. Mr. Ishan, if you could tell us that did you all work on all the issues or did each person take one or two issues to draft?
Okay, that's quite that was quite understandable from the first day that there's going to be a good division of labor. So what we did was that we divided the work accordingly. That issue one, Rishabh Agrawal is taking; issue two, Rishabh Joshi is taking; issue three, I'm taking. So accordingly, we researched, uh, questions, had discussions regarding a certain point, added something, deleted something, and even if some and just got good case laws on it, and then had a and was just discussing about it how we have to add it up into the IRAC format. Basically for me, I was quite because these two people are here very adept with IRAC format, and I was quite on the lowest on the other side. Like, yeah, I need to brush it up more. So it was this is how we continued forward with it, and going for drafting. Then we set deadlines like again that we need to have a first draft ready by this date, the second draft by this date, and before that we need the proper outline of the memorial done. So even before we started drafting the first draft and second draft, I believe the whole outline for the memorial was created beforehand. The whole cover page, the table of contents, the last submission date, and that all in all. So it was quite planned out beforehand. Thank you.
That's great. So Mr. Rishabh Joshi, if you could answer this question, that post the memorial submission, how did you guys practice for the oral rounds? And approximately how many oral rounds or practice rounds did it take to get well versed with your arguments?
Okay, so we had about roughly 8 days, 7 to 8 days, maybe around a week that we had for preparation of our oral rounds. And along with that, we were also preparing our compendium simultaneously. So we had to firstly decide what all are we going to speak in our orals, and accordingly, we'll have to work upon the compendium thing. First of all, we divided our work between these two. I mean, as per the time that we had, firstly, we have to work on compendium and simultaneously upon the oral rounds. Coming to the part about oral rounds, we ensured that we practiced almost every day, maybe taking up 2 rounds a day. Rishabh Agrawal and I, we were both speakers in the mood, so we took external help. We took help from our seniors. We took help from people we have interned under. We took help from our faculty. But as far as the preparation for rounds goes, as far as practice rounds go, we ensure that at least we both had 2 rounds or 1 round every single day till the very end. That is the approach we took. And apart from that, obviously, we took help from our seniors. They did not take our rounds per se. They were in for the grilling session when we just sat with them for like 1 hour or 2 hours, and we did not take note of the time. Then we simply asked them that you ask as many questions as you can, and we were simply trying to answer those questions then or noting it down so that we can research upon them. And simultaneously, the third work was included into our schedule, which was preparation of the question bank. So we worked upon all these three together.
That's great. Mr. Rishabh Agarwal, can you briefly tell us about the quality of judging? Did the judges seem like they were well versed with the facts and law related to the case, or were you guys grilled well by them?
Okay. So I believe the quality of judging was good. It was very good. And it was also very grilling. And that grilling helped us to understand the loopholes and the areas which maybe we are not so well versed with. And that helped us for the advanced rounds. For example, I remember, and this is a tip which all mooters should remember, that while they're preparing their question banks and while they're preparing their answers to those questions, please remember that you answer to the point first. For example, if the judge has asked you that, what is this? You don't explain how it is and then come to what it is. You first come to what it is, and you never ever dodge a question by saying that I will answer it in this leg of my submission. So that was helpful. That the grilling, I remember in the preliminary rounds, they asked us, I was talking about judicial review and how it is part of basic structure. So the question came, okay, what is the source of basic structure? Now that can be, oh my God, why is he asking me such a basic question? So that kind of question can come in your mind. However, not as a mooter, but as a law student, you should know the answer. So even the questions of first principles, basic elements, jurisdiction, what is the rule, etc. Even these basic questions can come, which helped us to concretize our submissions. And for advanced rounds, it helped us. So I believe that the judging was nice. It was good.
I would just like to add a quick point to what Rishabh Agrawal said. He spoke on the legal terms. I'd just like to point out a small incident that took place while I was in my first preliminary round. So we have two companies in our we had two companies in our moot problem, and one of them was named so and so GmbH, which is GmbH is a German term. So obviously, you will never expect that a judge will ask you what GmbH is. And that was our first prelim round. The judge asked me what GmbH is. It was totally unexpected. We had zero idea that something of that sort can come up. But that was again a very understandable and very great lesson that we have to prepare. We have to prepare to an extent with regards to the moot problem that every little detail, every little intricacies we are aware of. So then there were Italian companies. We looked for what SPA means because SPA was another term which is for the Italian company. Similarly, we had French company term, which was all neglected till that judge asked this question. So yes, apart from the legal angle of the moot problem and the law, you'll have to understand that facts are equally important, if not more.
Indeed. Mr. Ishan, if you could tell our audience that how was the moot organized, and did you guys as a team face any administrative hiccups during the process?
The mood was very well organized. That is, I have to give it to them. It was really good. Uh, there wasn't any sort of administrative hiccups we faced as a team, because the court marshals, they were very polite, they were very friendly, they were very helpful, and they were very understanding all at the same time. uh, I believe there was this incident with the timer thing that before, because for the mooting, for the oral session, we have to share our compendiums as well. But for that, there was this timer thing that was going on the screen. So we requested for them to, just shut it down and just let us share the compendium. So most of the times it's the discretion of the judge. So they told us, like, yeah, we'll ask the judges what they have in mind, and accordingly it worked out. So we were able to share the compendium. That was quite a good thing. And as we would be facing a lot of glitches, not glitches, it would be a bit tiring to point out what the real point is, or what the real fact of the question was, or what the real fact of the case was. So there wasn't any sort of administrative glitches from there, and it was very well organized. It was very well organized. Thank you.
It's great. Coming back to Mr. Rishabh Joshi, you competed with NLSIU in the finals, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
And so how did it feel competing against the top law schools team?
It was really an incredible, a very challenging experience. I have to go by that then, because we realized while we were taking the rounds, and in fact before that, when we got the memo, when the memo exchange took place, we realized that these are all that we had on the petitioner side, on the applicant side of our memorial. So we realized that this team is up to the mark. They have already included. They're at par with us. It was not imbalanced of any sort. And not just the final rounds team. In fact, in the semi-finals also, we faced a team which was equally up to the mark. We do not know precisely which team we were up against, but they were great as well. But yes, NLS did a great job. They were very challenging. They were answering the questions of the judges really well, to the point, direct. So everything that we had prepared for, they had already incorporated in their memorials and speaking style.
Just one point I'll briefly add to what Rishabh Joshi has said about the question that how does it feel to compete against the top law school. Actually, while we were mooting, as is the norms amongst competitions, that there is a code which is provided. So we don't get to know that which college we are against, like throughout from the prelims till the finals. So we didn't know which college it is. However, yes, the team was very well prepared. It was congenially and very nicely answering the questions. So yes, to have a good competitor against you really gives you a good feeling that yes, we did it best. So that was really a big learning experience. And later on, when we got to know it is NLSIU, yes. So of course, that we got to know that okay, this was the university, and then we got to know. Thank you.
All right. So, Mr. Rishabh Agarwal, would you recommend this mood for someone who is going to mood for the first time? And after you answer, I would also like Mr. Ishan to add in this question if he wants to, because considering that it was his first mood.
Well, I think for me to recommend this move to someone who's doing it for the first time, I would say yes. However, with certain cautions that you should have preliminary reading and then go for this move, which is in a niche area. And that's how I believe, unless Rishabh Joshi, you have something to add.
I think it was quite a challenging note. The team should not be that the team is imbalanced. It should not be that all the people who are in the team are from the first year only, because you need a little bit of guidance, a little familiarity with the law, a little understanding of the law beforehand. Especially as I earlier mentioned, if you're going into such niche subject, it will be really difficult if a first year student, or if first year team entirely is going to do a tax mode or an intellectual property mode, because they have no idea what these laws are. They are not taught about this in their CLAT coachings also, in the previous preparation, in their first semester or the second semester they are in. So yes, I think there should be a little bit of senior guidance, and if you have a coach, then it's even better. But yes, obviously, if you have a balanced team, if there are seniors, then obviously you can go and participate.
So if I were to add something to it, I'll definitely say that yes, you should take part. Take it as your first moot experience, or whatever you want it to be. And because it is all about gaining experience, and again, the team should be balanced out. You need a prior guidance, you need a preliminary reading of the topic, and you need to have a little bit of inclination towards this topic. If you do not have that inclination towards the topic, it won't matter in the long run, because you need to enjoy the process as well. So if you're not enjoying the whole mooting process, it's just a tiresome. It's just a tiresome exercise. You won't get something out of it. So if you're going for it, definitely give it your all. That's the best thing. That's the best thing. You can definitely go for it. There's no point. Yes, the team should be balanced. I got great advice and guidance from these two seniors here. So it was a very good experience. Yeah.
That's great to hear, Ishan. So this is my last question to all of you, and I would like all of you to share one tip each which you think can be helpful for the future mooters. Uh, Mr. Ishan, if you could start.
So if I were to sum up what my tip should be to all the mooters out there, it should be coalesced into 5 points. That is, be clear, be concise, be compelling, be consistent, and be committed to your work. Give it your all. That's the best thing you can do. And enjoy the process. Enjoy the process. Do not let it tire you out. It can get cumbersome at some point, but ultimately it will pay off. So just stick in there and give it your all. That's one thing.
I will say be prepared for sleepless nights. That is what on a lighter note, but however, I will say that don't self-doubt. I think that is my tip to mooters, because this is what I have experienced in my 4 years experience from mooting intra moots as well as national and international moots, that many a time we start doubting our way of arguing or our way of memorial drafting when we look at others who are arguing and their style of presenting and their mannerisms and their way of writing the submissions. It many a times happens and we start self-doubting ourselves. And this is what I have learned from mooting and interning at courts like High Courts and Supreme Court, that every person has his or her own court craft with which you can convince the judge or the arbitrator with your point of view. So be confident with what your court craft, with what your advocacy style or your memorial drafting style is. Learn from others. However, don't self-doubt that, don't bring your self-morale down that, no, I'm not a good mooter because this is the best one. No, there is no best. It's your model. You present it in the way that you would like to. So that is, I think, my tip would be.
My advice would be, in simple terms, just anticipate the anticipated, the unanticipated, because this will help you a lot while you are researching. It will help you a lot while you are answering the questions of the judges, while you are simply arguing your questions, arguing your rounds. Most of the time when you're mooting, and that is what makes it the most interesting college activity, at least for me it has been, it will be again, is that you're never sure what is going to come up, what they're going to throw up against you, and you'll have to be very, you'll have to answer on the point, you'll have to maintain your calmness while you're answering. They should not be able to sense that you're nervous then, because all this again goes against you. If they sense you are nervous, then they'll be asking more questions in order to disbalance you there. So this is something that requires a bit of preparation, and that comes with experience. But yes, even if it is your first round, even if you're going to moot for the first time, please ensure that you know every bit of everything that is involved in it. And apart from that, you have practiced enough to not be thrown off guard because of certain questions, because of certain remark that the judge makes sometimes, because that will, the judges are very inclined on ensuring that you lose your balance while you're arguing. They'll ensure that when you're arguing your first issue, they'll ensure that you go to the third issue and finish that first, and then come back to the second issue, then come to the first issue. And you need to practice in all these sense. Agar ye bhi aa raha hai, then I'm able to tackle it really well and I'm able to answer those questions really well. So yeah, that would be my advice.
These are indeed amazing tips. So that was my last question. And now I would like to open the floor for questions. I already have one, just to read it out to you all. In which year we should start moot court competition, and where should we start our first moot court competition?
I think the first semester itself is a great start of it. I mean, you already understand the basic of all kind of law. Especially if you have intra moot court rounds, then there is nothing better than that. In the first semester itself, go for it. Just have a first-hand experience of how the round works. Just understand what kind of questions come up, how your demeanor is supposed to be, what your body language is supposed to be. Learn from your seniors, and I think you can start from the first semester itself. It just makes you prepared for what is to come.
Right.
That,
And no, for the second part of the question, where the person is asking where we should start our first moot court competition. So I was curious by what he's meaning by where we should start. If I'm understanding correctly, if he's asking national or international, if that is the question. So I think it depends upon your interest. I've seen people who are participating in international moot court competitions as well in their first year, having maybe they would have got interest after from their seniors or from the guidance that they got. So it is upon your interest and upon your abilities. About, as I said in the beginning, in the before, that you should assess your deliverables beforehand before going for a moot. So if it is feasible for you, if it is possible for you, and if you're interested in it, you should definitely go for it even in the first year. I hope I
mm,
answered the question.
yes, you very well answered the question, Rishabh. So the next question is, what should one do when we are stuck up with the time, and it may be in front of judges or in front of seniors. Irrespective of that, how should we, handle or manage our time?
A precautionary measure can be taken, I guess, that you're already prepared with those answers, as I already mentioned. If you know the answer, you can just get on with it, answer the question as brief as possible, and move ahead with this. In case you're not aware of the answer, what I did was very simple. I would simply tell them that I don't know the answer, and that would just stop it. If you start faffing there, then obviously the judge will note that, understand that at the very moment. Because usually when judges ask you a question, they're very precise about it. They're already aware of the fact that they're already aware of the question that they are asking, and they're also aware of the answer. So if you delineate from that, they'll understand that you don't know the answer and you are simply faffing right there. And that process will take up a lot of time because the judge will ask a follow-up question, maybe two follow-up questions, maybe make a quirky remark at you and throw you off balance even further. So it's better to just acknowledge there and move forward with your submissions.
Rishabh, a follow-up question to that is exactly what is in my question, what is in my chat box right now, is that what if we are actually stuck on any question or questions asked by the judges, and how should we get out of it?
I think that summed it up, right? You either answer the question in the briefest manner possible, provided you're aware of the answer and you've prepared it beforehand. But if you don't know it, just say that, apologies, Your Lordship, we are not aware of the answer at the moment. I'll get back to you later. And later, as in that later, should not imply that I'll answer it in the next argument or in the next submission. That later implies that I'll understand it and maybe in the next hearing I'll answer you the question. So this is the approach that I took, and it worked for me. It saved a lot of time, firstly. And time is extremely important because if you get stuck in the first issue itself or the second issue and your entire arguments are remaining, then you'll never be able to come to it. They'll simply hold you there and grill you. I remember Rishabh Agrawal can answer it better because there was this question regarding constitutional law. And he had to answer so many questions pertaining to constitutional law, and constitutional law had very little to do with our whole problem. If Rishabh Agrawal can share that experience, it would be really helpful.
Sure.
I believe Rishabh Joshi has answered it very comprehensively. For the brevity of time, I think I'll just add that it was regarding that basic structure, and from basic structure, it went into Keshwananda Bharati's facts, and from Keshwananda Bharati's facts, it went into all other different arenas of Article 226 as well as Article 32 and the basics. So it took a lot of time. However, it could have been more smartly prepared in the sense that I could have answered briefly, but it was my first round. I was also very excited. I was also answering in a detailed manner. I was getting happy that yes, I am knowing all the answers. However, that is not correct. You should not answer each and every question in so much detail. You should be well, I think, thoughtful while answering, that this question I have to answer in one line, this question I have to answer in 2 words maybe, or in 2 minutes, depending on the importance it has on your case. So this is what I believe you should keep in mind. And answering the question what to do if you're stuck on some factual glitch, that factual clarity you are not having, ask for a minute, go to the fact sheet, open it, get it printed out, and go to the fact sheet and answer. If you're stuck on a legal query, then I believe you should refer your memorial asking for a moment. If the answer is not there in your memorial and in your notes, you should apologize, not in the sense that I apologize, I don't know the answer. You should say that we'll research on this and get back to you later. So I think that's how you solve this kind of inappropriate moment. I think.
Uh, I completely agree with you, Rishabh. So my next question is for Ishan. Ishan, it was mentioned that compendiums are important, and you and your team actually used a compendium. So can you please elaborate the process of submitting the compendium?
I remember correctly, there wasn't any particular guideline for us to submit the compendium. Like the compilation of compendium wasn't necessary, but if you make it, it's quite useful for you as well, because most of the time the judges want to know from where you're saying or from what paragraph you're stating, as in the way it is presented in there. So a compendium is basically a compilation of all the case laws, important case laws, statutes, and all the online sources or the other important materials that you're going to quote when you're speaking in front of the judges or when your oral rounds are going on. So for that, I believe I asked Rishabh Agrawal about this, like what factors do I need to take into account. So it's basically you have to print the first page of the judgment, the last page of the judgment, and the exact page of the judgment from where you're quoting the crux of the case law. So for example, there's a judgment of 20 pages. So what I'll do is I'll print the first page, I'll print the last page, and then I'll take, supposedly, let's say the 13th page number has the thing which I'm going to argue before the court. So I'll print that, I'll highlight the exact part, and I'll complete it. So that way I'll do it for another case law, and for other statutes, or even not for the statutes, basically for the online sources and the materials, specifically for the case laws. And then I'll prepare a table of contents, compile it, make a PDF, and then submit it. So it basically helps for the oral rounds, because most of the times, or not most of the time, this year, you have to present what you're saying. You have to present what you're saying. I believe there was this team, they weren't completely aware with the compendium, and the judge asked them to show do you have your compendium with you. So they did not have it. So I believe there was this round that happened. So this is the whole process of compendium, how you have to make it, how you have to submit it. So this pretty much helps you for the oral round. I believe I've summed it up, and if I haven't, I believe Rishabh Agrawal or Rishabh Joshi can add.
Yeah, I believe that you have summed it up pretty well. So the next question, I feel that it has been addressed, but I would still like you, Ishan, to elaborate on it a little. That how can someone manage in a situation where a judge asks you about any section or any particular segment which is in your third issue or third part of your argument, while you're still on the first issue or first part?
I'll say, first of all, keep your calm. That's the first thing, because they're going to see any change that happens in your demeanor. They'll know it, and that's what they're looking for. They want to know that, yeah, you're anxious about it. And if I'll give you the first-hand experience, I'll say that keeping your calm will definitely help you remember the points. And if you have practiced well, you're very well versed with all the issues, be it issue 1, issue 2, issue 3. So even if the question comes from issue 3, uh, if you're well versed, you'll definitely going to answer it, and you'll definitely going to answer it in an articulate manner. You won't beat around the bush, you won't blabber. You would just simply come to the point, and that's what the judges are looking for most of the times. Not most of the times, it's always. They always look for the exact answer. And if you satisfy that, you'll definitely going to get good marks. So I believe that sums it up.